In my last video, I made this Magikarp fishing lure. I tried to stay true to the character model from the games and anime, but that meant sacrificing usability. I'd like to have one that does more than just this in the water, so today I'm revisiting the Magikarp build. Let's try to make something that can actually catch fish. Welcome back to Failing Up Projects. A lot of the steps in this build were similar to the last Magikarp. So, I again started by cutting out and sanding the rough shape of the lure from a block of basswood. I needed to draw some lines to guide my next cuts on the bandsaw. I saved an offcut from before so I could use it as a jig to make it easier to cut the side profiles. This helped keep a more square shape and gave it more stability on the bandsaw, so I'll probably keep doing this in the future. After a few minutes on the sander, I had a block that was ready to start shaping. First, I drew lines to guide the carving of the chamfered corners. Then I used a file and several grits of sandpaper to smooth everything out. After carving the mouth detail, this lure was starting to resemble its big sister. I used the template as a reference to draw some carving lines for the details. The main thing keeping the first Magikarp lure from being a functional fish catcher was the size and orientation of the fins. In the water, the top and bottom fins would have provided too much vertical stability, and the side fins would have caught too much water and prevented any real action on retrieval. My compromise for this lure was leaving out the top and bottom fins while carving the side fins into the side with the other details. I used a Forstner bit to drill some lead holes in the belly. I was hoping the flat mouth and shape of the head would let this function as a lipless crankbait, so I made the holes large enough to hold enough lead to make it sink. Once the lead had cooled, I used some UV resin to fill the holes. I thought I did a good enough job, but as you'll see later, I didn't get a full seal on the closure and you can see the holes on the finished lure. A quick bathtub test dashed my hopes for a lipless crankbait, but I can fix that. I cut a slot below the mouth for a polycarbonate lip, and I made the lip in such a shape that would let me use the sides to imitate whiskers. I secured the lip with some UV resin and taped it off to prep it for the first coat of paint. Most of my lures get a white base coat, and this one was no exception. I'll be putting a clear coat layer on before the color layers, so I used a white base layer for the white parts of the eyes and fins. To keep things from getting too repetitive, I didn't want to use the same paint job as the last Magikarp. So this time I decided to paint the shiny gold variant. This also helped compensate for the lack of top and bottom fins, since the fins are the same color as the body on the character model from the games. I mixed up a Velveeta shade of yellow for the next layer, and I sprayed that over the clear coat and masking fluid, and followed it up with metallic gold. Once that was dry, I peeled off the masking fluid and used the Velveeta mixture again to paint the whiskers on the sides of the lip and the mouth detail. I put a thin layer of UV resin on the sides of the lip to protect the whisker paint, then spread the same UV resin on the rest of the body for the final clear coat before hanging it in the UV oven to cure. Even though I'm not attaching fins, I still wanted to at least have a tail on this lure. So I decided to try tying my first feather treble. I don't have all the correct tying equipment, so this turned out to be a little trickier than it should have been. But with a little trial and error, I think it turned out okay. Once everything had cured, all that was left was to attach the hooks and admire my shiny fish. That's nice, but let's see how it does in the water. I'll go ahead and spoil the surprise. No fish were caught that day. That's about what I expected though. It was 20 degrees and windy when I took it for the test, and my line was freezing if I didn't immediately recast. I saw enough to be pleased with the action though, so I'll be sure to take it back out when the weather's warmer to see if I can actually get a fish with it. Since this was so similar to the last video, I wanted to try a more condensed format. So let me know if you prefer a longer, more detailed video like I did with the first Magikarp, or if these shorter edits are better. Either way, thanks for joining me for another project. Please click the like button if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you don't want to miss the next one. I hate to ask, but it really is the best way you can help a small channel like this reach more people. I'll catch you next time.